Hey guys, what's up? I am TheMadUzuki, and I have battles to record and stuff. And I'm sick, so I probably sound like crap. But anyway, first battle, let's get into it. He is going to lead with Bronzong. I'm going to lead with my Skarmory because we both want to get up our Stealth Rocks, and then I decide to Whirlwind him out. And I whirlwind him out into Dragonite, which actually works out for me because that means his multi-scale is definitely broken. And then I'm going to set up a Toxic, because apparently I run Toxic on the Skarmory. It's a really weird Skarmory with like Toxic, Stealth Rock, Defog, and Whirlwind. But it kind of works out. But now that his Dragonite's multi-scale is broken, which was really the main purpose of my Stealth Rocks, I can defog to get rid of all the stealth rocks, and entry hazards are no longer a problem. Then I decide to switch out my Skarmory after whirlwinding out his Magnezone into Starmie, because I figure if I have the opportunity, I can set up stealth rocks again later on. Maybe after his Bronzong's died, or after his Starmie's died, or something. As he goes into as he Ice Beams, I go out into my Trevenant, and I take the Ice Beam fairly well, and then he goes for Hyper Voice as I substitute, which doesn't really work out for me because Hyper Voice would hit me through the sub, so I have to switch out if I don't want to lose my Trevenant, which I don't at this particular time. So I go out into Aegislash to immediately scare out Sylveon and resist the Hyper Voice. Now the problem with this is he brings out his Magnezone, which, has the Steel Trap, whatever. Now, I make the horrible mistake of going for Iron Head first. I just thought it would do more damage than it did, because it slipped my mind for a moment that Steel no longer resists Ghost types attacks. So, that was my thought process there. But with Aegislash dying, that gives me an opportunity to go out into my Charizard. I am still running Heat Wave this battle, which costs me a little bit here because I miss and I get Toxic. In the long run, it's not that big a deal, but it does happen. It could have been much more detrimental to me, depending on how this game played out. But as he goes out into Sylveon, now that his Bronzong is dead, I can go out into my Skarmory, set up my Stealth Rocks, and let him take me out with Hyper Voice or whatever he wants to do. I'm bringing my Sylveon, just because I know his Sylveon is carrying Toxic, and I go for a Calm Mind because I have the Lumberry. So I get a Calm Mind off, and then I can start firing off Echoed Voices, which initially does crap damage. But after a couple of Echoed Voices, they're going to stack up really, really nicely. But he's going to go for Protect here, and he has all these shenanigans going on. I probably could have gone for like a second Calm Mind before I started Echo Voicing. It would have made more sense, but I didn't. And at this point, I'm like, well, I'm kind of committed at this point, and eventually Echoed Voice will be able to kill this thing off, even with all his like wish shenanigans. And he's going to go into Breloom, and obviously that's a Technician set, and take me out with Bullet Seed plus Life Orb. So that's a lot of damage going out right there. There was no way Sylveon was surviving that. But I have my Mega Charizard Y. I go for the Air Slash because it would be 4 times super effective against Breloom and hit everything else for neutral damage. I really I knew the Starmie was coming in. I don't know why I just didn't Solar Beam. Would have made more sense. But I can go into my Trevenant here. Mostly just to sack it at this point because I don't really need it. So I just decided to go for because I know Starmie probably has Rapid Spin. So that's why, I just go for the Will-O-Wisp, because if I Leech Seeded, he could just spin it away. And besides, I have Jolteon to take out this Starmie with little considering, its choice spec and volt switch and stuff and things. Um, then now here I'm going to go back out into Jolteon just because I figured he would most likely roost. If he's a multi-scale variant, he probably has it. And I don't know. It just I had a feeling that either way I would be able to deal with that Dragonite. So I can go into Jolteon, Hidden Power Ice, and just clean up the game. Um, it was a good match. A couple of misplays on both sides, but it worked out for me. Worked out with a 2-0. And I will see you in a moment with the second battle. Alright, second battle time. The major changes between the last battle and this battle is I made a couple of team changes, which was slapping Greninja and Azumarill on this team. Greninja I'm running with Protean Choice Band. It actually works out really well, and I really, really like this set. Just because it has a lot of damage potential. And I think it works out. Even with Greninja's 97 base attack, it's still pretty admirable. And then Azumarill is Azumarill, which is Water Fairy, which is a really, really, really potent offensive typing. And I wanted to try it out, and it's been working out. He leads with Goodra, I lead with Greninja. Just go right for the Choice Banded U-turn. I know I'm going to outspeed, have no worries there. His Goodra's going to go for the Infestation, which is kind of a weird play. So it kind of works out that I go for the into Azumarill because it mitigates a lot of the initial damage. What I should have done here was just gone for the Waterfall because it hits more things on his team for neutral damage. But I decided to go for the Play Rough, just on the off chance that he wants to stay in with the Goodra. When he brings in Klefki, Klefki is usually Thunder Wave, and I want to preserve my Azumarill, so I go right out into my Jolteon because to me it made the most sense. I start firing off Choice Spec Thunderbolts, but because he's behind a light screen, and that combined with switching into Sylveon with Sylveon's astronomical special defense, I really can't do much with Jolteon, so I'm forced to switch out. Which is when I go out into my Trevenant, go for the Leech Seed, but he's actually running Sap Sipper Goodra, which I should have known because when I with U-turn earlier, Gooey didn't activate, so I should have known that it was Sap Sipper. Should have gone for the Will-O-Wisp, would have been a higher value play. He goes into his Charizard, and I was really hoping this was Mega Charizard X because that's what most people are running, but it's Mega Charizard Y, which is a little problematic. But I do kind of have an advantage because Echoed Voice does hit through the substitute. I really should have gone for a second Calm Mind. I would have been able to kill Charizard, I believe, had I done that. But it doesn't really work out. I have to bring in Jolteon and Volt Switch out just to break his sub. And then I go into Azumarill because I pretty much resist all of his stab moves. And I directly scare him out with the Waterfall, which in this case is what I think I go into. Yeah, I go for the Waterfall. Takes out that Klefki from 40%, roughly, which is really nice. Sheer Power Azumarill, non-boosted, just max attack, still can dish out a lot of damage. Against the Barbicle, I end up going for the Play Rough, just because it has the higher base damage, but he turns out to be a Shell Smasher. Now, it kind of works out that he tries to do this, because I get him down to a point where he's not going to switch out to Barbicle, because he won't be able to switch back in easily. So I can take him out with a couple of Aqua Jets. And since Barbicle really didn't have that much he could do, it just made sense to me to stay in and take him out. As he goes out into his Azumarill, I go out into Trevenant at least to get the burn off, just to attempt to get to mitigate the damage and just get residual damage going on. Still takes out two of my guys, and I'm a little worried because I really don't have that much that I can do to this thing. But thankfully, Greninja can live a Aqua Jet. I was hoping that U-Turn would do a little bit more, but suffice to say, Azumarill is pretty fat, and it does resist it now. So, but it gives me an opportunity to go out into my Azumarill and start trying to take out his Azumarill because he's burned and I have lefties, and in the end, it would be more advantageous for me because all he has left are guys that really don't want to tangle with Azumarill. Unfortunately, my play rough misses, which happens because it's a base 90 accuracy move, and he gets to toxic me, which is things that happen. Missing is a part of the game. And since play rough is the best fairy type stab Azumarill gets, I figured I would just run with it. I waterfall and I crit for 63%, which makes me think that this is more of a physically invested Sylveon, which is interesting. I know the excuse me. I know the Protect is coming, so I decided to switch and just start firing off waterfalls with Greninja. I probably could have kept Greninja, and it may have been better in the long run. But for some reason, I decided that I needed it. Oh, I decided I needed a Azumarill to take out Charizard because Azumarill has Aqua Jet. So the priority would have been more important. Though in retrospect, in complete honesty, the fact that Greninja has a base speed of 122, he would have outsped Charizard anyway, so it wouldn't have made a difference. But at this point, I decide that I'm just going to stay in and keep waterfalling. If he wants to continue these Wish Protect shenanigans, eventually he'll run out of Protects. You only get 16, so he really can't have that much more left. And at this point, I decided to go out into my Mega Charizard Y, Mega Evolve, go for the Flamethrower, which nearly takes it out, which should have been a sign right there to me that this thing was more physically invested than specially defensive. But what I ended up doing is going right for the Flamethrower, which I switched out for Heat Wave. If I still had the Heat Wave or carried Fire Blast, I probably would have taken out that Sylveon. But this is a really interesting situation. He switches out into his Charizard as I go for Air Slash to get some damage off. And I realize that this is a speed tie. So basically, we're just going back and forth with speed ties. I think he switches out, hoping that he could get a Wish off, but because he's not specially invested and I'm Mega Charizard, yeah, it doesn't really work out for him. Either that or he's just stacking it so he could get the sun back up, which makes sense. But at this point, I decide that I'm just going to keep going for Air Slashes, because if he wants to roost constantly, eventually I'll either outspeed and flinch, or I'll crit. Ironically, neither of those things happen, and then I win the speed tie and end up killing him, which works out. So that would be the battle, and I'll talk to you guys next time.